This takes me back. Trying to do my geography A-level coursework. Bing, 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 bing. Well, it's one of the great divides of the 21st century, with some parts of Devon getting ultra-high-speed fibre internet and others barely out of the era of dial-up. And that's something that's frustrating one of our MPs here in the county, the Liberal Democrat MP for South Devon, Caroline Voaden. Good morning, Caroline.
Good morning.
How big of a problem is this?
It's a huge problem. We have areas, large parts of the South Devon constituency among the worst 10% in the country for coverage. They've been let down time and again by private contractors who've been given contracts to provide broadband. Who've done the easy bits, the urban bits, and have then disappeared because it was too expensive and too hard to connect rural homes. But we're not just talking about houses that are right out on their own in the sticks. You know, we're talking about villages where there's a concentration of houses that have no full fibre broadband. And it's not really a luxury anymore. You know, it is a necessity for people to be able to get online. More and more of our services are moving online. And I think the government is not giving this the due attention it requires.
Do you get a significant number of emails from constituents on this subject?
Oh, it's massive. It's massive. In the summer, I did a tour of 52 towns and villages around the constituency, and it came up time and time and time again. It was the most discussed problem that constituents have.
Well, let's hear from one of your constituents. Richard lives in Rattery. He's been telling me this morning about his lack of broadband and how that affects him.
Well, the phone signal is very good where we live, not so much in the village. But our broadband connection here is very poor indeed. In fact, we have to rely on the phone signal to contact the internet.
So you're used to seeing that circular wheel of doom that pops up in the middle of your computer often, I imagine?
Yes, it would be normal to see that.
Talk to me about how it affects your life. How much do you rely on broadband and using the internet?
Well, there are two problems with the connection. First of all, it's unreliable, so that we will lose connection unexpectedly, which is very frustrating. You think about it, so much of everyday life now depends on the internet, booking a holiday, registering a product, ordering stuff, and it can take 2 or 3 attempts if halfway through that process the internet disappears. The second problem is that the connection is very slow. So most people nowadays can reliably stream TV programs, for instance. We can't. So that sort of thing is denied us because the connection is slow. All this is also very, very frustrating because this problem could be easily fixed. As I'm speaking to you now, I'm looking out, and on a telegraph pole outside the house is a coil of optic fibre, which broadband put up, and every time I am experiencing slow and unreliable internet connection, I look out of my window and see the fibre cable that could solve the problem. Because it's not being solved because the pace of change is glacial, and that's because of incompetence, really.
And what's it like for people you know who live in Rattery as well? Is it a similar situation?
No, because our neighbour just up the lane, about a quarter mile away, has got full fibre to premises broadband connection. Very fast and very reliable.
That must be frustrating because it's only a quarter of a mile away.
Yes, it is equally frustrating because actually the infrastructure to connect us is just hanging there, waiting.
That's Richard in Rattery, who I spoke to earlier. And I remember us reporting on this a year ago, Caroline. There was a new project to deliver high-speed broadband to tens of thousands of homes in parts of Devon, including your constituency. Has that not made a difference?
That contract covers 37,110 homes across Devon and Somerset. And after a year, they have delivered high-speed broadband to 50 homes, which is, I think, 0.01% or something of the contract. I mean, it's just, I may have got my decimal point slightly wrong, but 50 out of 37,000, it just shows that it's not fit for purpose. And one of the things that I find really galling is that the previous company, Airband, who I think might be who Richard are referring to, who began the work and then bailed out of the contract when it got too expensive, a lot of their equipment is in place. So there are fibre cables in the ground and there are cabinets on the pavement. But I'm told that it belongs to them. So a new company can't come along and just pick up where they left off. I mean, that seems utterly ludicrous when they were given a government contract to provide the broadband in the first place. And I think, so I used to live not far from Rattery and had a satellite dish on my roof, which connected to a base station in Italy so that I could get internet. And in the end, it drove me so insane that I did move house. But I think one of the problems is that a lot of houses in the South Hams would be very difficult to connect with fibre in the ground. And that feels like very old technology now. I think we need to leapfrog that. I think we need to look at the possibility of using routers that connect through a good, solid 4G network, for example. So as if you're using the internet on your mobile phone when you're out and about, you can do that from home if you have a good enough 4G signal. But one of the problems that compounds it in the South Hams is that we have many villages and towns where there's really poor mobile signal as well. So it might be easier and cheaper to try and improve the mobile signal and use that to provide broadband rather than digging trenches in the ground all over the South Hams. I mean, there's got to be a way. If Elon Musk can do it, then there's got to be a way that the British government can do it. And, I have a lot of constituents who don't want to have Starlink. They don't want to pay Elon Musk £75 a month. And that is hugely expensive. So there are businesses that rely on it. Many, many businesses rely on it because it's the only option. And I think that's a bit of a travesty that the only option we have is paying someone like Elon Musk to use his satellite system.
Well, funnily enough, Elon's not here to defend himself on that, but producer Caroline is here, and she's been in touch with Openreach, which won the contract to deliver high-speed broadband to parts of Devon. What have they been telling you, Caroline?
Yes, Cara. So Openreach say fast and reliable broadband's vital for rural areas, and we're working closely with the government through Project Gigabit to ensure no communities left behind. Upgrading broadband in rural and remote areas takes careful planning and complex engineering solutions. South Devon, Mid Devon and North Somerset are challenging areas which some other providers' commercial plans have been unable to reach. Since the contract was awarded, Openreach engineers have been hard at work and the first homes and businesses in this area are now connected. The rollout is reaching parts of Pinhoe and Kenford in Devon, with dozens more communities to follow in the coming months, and delivery of this contract will continue up until 2030.
Thank you, Caroline. Do you have to accept that these things do take time, Caroline Voaden?
Well, Pinhoe and Kenford are both on the outskirts of Exeter, so we're not talking about the rural parts of Devon, are we? We're talking about the urban fringe of Exeter. At the speed the current project is going at, it will take 680 years to cover Devon and Somerset. So they may say that the first homes have been delivered, but as I say, only 50 homes have been delivered in a year. It's not good enough. And I don't think there is enough understanding in government of how bad the problem is and the impact it has on people's lives. I mean, Richard talked about many of the impacts on his life of not having broadband, but let's look at business. Let's look at people who are trying to work remotely from home, who are trying to cut down on commuting, who live in rural areas. People who, let's say somebody has to take children to school in the morning and pick them up in the afternoon. They can't then do an hour and a half commute at either end of the day to get to the nearest town or city to work. They might choose to work from home. And we want to promote that. We want to encourage people to have, good, well-paying jobs, which may involve remote working. And it's just not possible if you don't have an internet connection.
For now, Caroline, thank you very much for your time. Caroline Voaden there, the Lib Dem MP for South Devon. What's your broadband like where you are? I live in Plymouth, so you know,
you're okay with it, are you?
Lucky me, you know, I can go home, I can watch the iPlayer easily, I can put BBC Sounds on in the kitchen, you know, no worries if I want to download something, I can do work at home, I can do work remotely if I'm editing something for this show.
Yeah.
You live in the South Hams.
Yeah, in a little village, and I understood when Caroline mentioned about a mobile signal, there is only one provider that works in our village, so if you don't have that, you're a bit stuffed really. And also we're connected, but it took us a long time. We had some very substandard internet connections. We are now finally connected, but it's taken a lot of local battles, people fighting for it as well.